Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How Telematics Data Drives Savings in Construction, presented by BSM Technologies and hosted by Equipment Today magazine, the commercial construction industry's leading equipment and technology information resource, and forconstructionpros.com, the construction industry's top web portal. My name is Becky Schultz, and I'm the editor of Equipment Today. Before we start, here's a brief overview of what you can expect during today's presentation. Today's program will consist of a series of slides with live audio from our presenter. We've reserved time at the end to address your questions. Questions can be submitted at any time using the question box on your screen, and our presenter will answer as many questions during the time as allotted. If he's unable to get to your question, it will be addressed offline following the event. If you have any technical difficulties at any time during the program, please contact us via the question box on your screen, and someone will assist you. An archived version of this webinar, including the slides shown, will be posted on forconstructionpros.com roughly 24 hours from now. Now I'd like to turn it over to our presenters.
Good morning, and thank you for attending today's webinar on using telematics to drive cost savings in the construction industry. We're excited to get started. Before we do, I'd like to introduce to you our presenter, Brendan Shaw. Brendan is a construction operations expert and Executive Vice President at BSM Technologies. Brendan brings over 20 years of experience and is often a guest speaker at industry events. Prior to BSM, Brendan worked for various companies in areas including transportation, telecom, and pharmaceutical. So with no further ado, I'll turn the microphone over to Brendan.
Great, thanks, Wajia, and I appreciate the time everyone's taking to walk through this. What we thought we'd do is really take a look at telematics in general and how it applies to the construction industry itself. You know, many companies are using data today coming from many different sources. You look at construction management software, being able to collect data for invoicing and claims. You look at other types of digital data for inspections of job sites themselves, as well as construction-based procurement software that allows jobs to be developed. Well, we can also use that same sort of data when looking at the equipment itself and the different machines that are online at job sites. So it makes sense not only to collect the data, but be able to use it for different types of business decisions to help drive trends within the industry. If you look at telematics, there's a number of things that can be derived from telematics. A lot of the standard things that people look at are things like safety, the user behavior. You look at different types of trends with fuel. When you look at idling and fuel consumption, utilization of the assets. A lot of people sell the assets once they're done with a job. So obviously keeping good track of the engines as well as the maintenance is important. And then there's compliance aspects. And we're talking about all kinds of different sources that are out there. It comes with everything from light stands to generators to vehicles that might be on a job site. So when you look at collecting telematics-based data, there are a lot of different use cases that we'll go through as we walk through this presentation. If you look at some of the data that's driving decisions right now and some of the savings that are out there, theft comes to mind. A lot of things, and we'll talk specifically about theft and some of the theft prevention capabilities. The asset utilization piece of it, how long has an asset run? Is the asset being run and utilized on a job while it's under load? Is it running while it's in use itself? And we'll talk through some of the asset utilization components. Then you have compliance. For those of you that have vehicles or heavy-duty based vehicles on job sites, those are regulated here in the United States from what's called ELD. It's compliance that the vehicles have to be regulated for drive time for the drivers driving them. Then you have other things like rental and billing, making sure the assets that are on site are being billed properly, the hours are being used properly. So there's some things we'll talk through with that. And then preventative maintenance. Obviously, one of the largest ones, you look at the cost and wear and tear on construction equipment, it can be quite costly if you're not actually preparing yourself for those assets and making sure they're maintained properly. So if you look at theft itself, which is the first topic we'll cover, annual estimates vary from different sources, but you're looking at an average of about $400 million in theft for assets being stolen off job sites or moved from job sites. We'll take a look at some statistics here over the next couple slides that show some of that characteristics. It is the number one component when it talks about risk on a job site is theft. If you look at things that are on job sites, and we're talking more equipment theft than we are, tools and things of that disappear. But if you look at that versus vandalism, or you look at that versus collisions on job sites, that is the single most largest component when it comes to risk. So definitely things you want to do to help prepare yourself so that theft does not occur on the job site. When you look at the National Register here, some of the most common stolen items out there basically look at backhoes, excavators, towable generators, light stands. These are things that can be quickly moved from job sites, allowing for the easy theft. I think there are a number of things that we'll kind of talk through that are preventatives you can use by using telematics. But some of the other things we see on job sites are managers, taking those, or project managers taking assets and kind of storing them for their own use. If they know they have a project coming up where they need 50, 60 light stands, a lot of times they queue those up. So by having telematics and the ability to be able to recognize where things are on job sites also helps when it comes to a theft or loss of where an asset is. Again, looking at, this is another way to look at the theft component of it. If you look at, the largest one being mowers and tractors, those are the easiest to walk away. Again, you're talking a smaller type of asset. But if you look down that list, loaders, and then you looked at wheel-based assets like generators, those are frequent as well. So really, what does that mean? If you're using telematics, telematics has many different forms and fashions. But one of the main components is being able to find GPS-based location information of those assets. So not only do we recommend registering your assets with the National Equipment Register, so they can't be sold on say, the black market because you'll have an owner from that, but using the telematics data to set up alerts so that you have a geozone or a landmark around a job site, so that if an asset leaves that job site, you know about it. Is it being transferred to another job, or is it in fact leaving the job after hours? You can also set different types of alerts up with different telematics companies for alerts after hours. So, if you know your job site is shut down at midnight and starts back up at 5 in the morning, between that period of midnight to 5 in the morning, you can actually shut down the capabilities so that if an asset moves after that hour timeline, you want to be notified of it. So some different things you can do to kind of help curb the theft aspect of it by using the telematics data that you're getting and incorporating that with the basic job site information. Another area is asset utilization. We talk about lost assets, unused assets, and underused assets. You look at the assets they have out there, whether you're talking about a tractor, a generator, you put it on a job site, but maybe it's never run. So obviously there's a cost to that. Can it be redeployed to a new job? So you continue to pay obviously on these jobs insurance premiums, the cost of the equipment, whether you're renting it or it's online. So something to consider there when you look at the asset utilization. You're collecting data now from those assets that are out in the field, allowing you to make better business decisions on those jobs. Some of the ways that the data can help from an asset utilization standpoint. Again, similar to theft, you're not going to lose an asset. You're going to know exactly where it is on a job site by using the GPS-based data within telematics itself. You'll basically be able to see if it's actually being run. How often is it being run? So some of those criteria, which we'll talk about a little bit later here when we get into the engine components and the data we're able to pull from equipment. But you're able to then take that information and making sure that you're using the right equipment on the right job. You don't have too much equipment on that job. So again, you're taking the data that you're getting from the equipment that's on site without someone having to go out there and read meters. So you're able to get a better view of that, which leads into maintenance and a number of other components when you look at the utilization piece. If you look at assets in general, you're able to use telematics, whether that's OEM-based telematics data or it's telematics data you get from a telematics provider on a lot of different assets. So whether you're looking at diggers, you're looking at light stands, generators, skidsters, all of that can basically come equipped with telematics, which again will allow you to take additional data points off of those assets. So when you look for a telematics provider and you're looking at different types of equipment, you want to see what they bring from an OEM perspective or what aftermarket or third-party telematics solutions can be put onto it. When we talk about the OEM side of things, there is a standard that's put out by the equipment management professionals called AEMP. And that was announced back in 2010. They came out with a standard, and really what that allows third-party OEM providers to do is work with any sort of telematics solution across the board and share data. So you can go with a light stand that already has telematics on it and be able to share that telematics with your telematics provider. So it's an information sharing capability that was developed. They have a standard, I think the latest standard is 2.1 that's available, which allows for information sharing. And really what that basically looks like, or what it allows you to do, is look at the utilization of different assets all on one map screen. So here's a sample. You have a Grove crane, a John Deere digger, United Rentals generator, and then a third-party telematics that might be running ELD. So you have the capabilities now of storing everything in one central location. I can get my total utilization for an entire job site by running and seeing what assets are out there. And then I can report based on total usage for a particular job site. So I know that all of this equipment is run for X amount of hours for the job site. And if you're quoting the job site based on work hours, you can then use that data to comply with billing and other types of requirements. So this is a big trend that's moving quickly in the construction industry, allowing the data sharing or data integration across the board here with telematics-based data from other types of vendors. So now you're not stuck with just going with one vendor that might have a telematics solution. You can mix and match the telematics solutions based on what's already installed in the OEM equipment that's out on your job site. The other big one is preventative maintenance. As you look at the data coming from the equipment, there's a lot of data and a lot of data that can be utilized for making better business decisions out there. So when you look at some of the capabilities out there of pulling engine hours, pulling the load percentages from different types of equipment, it not only gives you how long is that asset being used, but also gives you specific information about how that asset is being utilized, whether it's under load, not under load, how long is it run on a job site. So it gives you a lot more capabilities on preventative maintenance. I can go out and look at what repairs need to be made ahead of time so I don't have equipment failing in the field. So again, using the telematics-based data to make better business decisions on the maintenance of equipment will help you in the long run so you don't face downtime or equipment that might have to be pulled off of a job site. So when you look at the preventative maintenance side of things, there's a dollar amount that's associated to this. You look at the yields that you have out there from preventative maintenance. If you're doing this ahead of time, again, you're looking at a significant savings. You could prevent things from happening in the field, which basically equates to a lot longer life of those assets. I know a lot of folks right now in the construction industry are going out and selling their equipment after they leave a job site and buying that new equipment when they move to a new job. So one of the important things there is having key records of your maintenance so you can basically control those costs and get a larger dollar value for the assets once they're turned in. If I know I have a machine that's run for 1,000 hours, but 400 of those 1,000 hours were under load, I might look at that a little bit more carefully than something that's been utilized for 1,000 hours with 1,000 hours of load. So again, different ways to look at this by using the preventative maintenance capabilities that come with telematics. The other area that we talk about is compliance. There's a lot of different compliance capabilities on the equipment side of things, as well as when you look at the ELD component, which is, again, based more on the vehicle side. So when you look at regulation, it's a big cost to the job site itself. And with telematics, you're able to use the technology to be able to kind of automate some of those compliance features. So it really offers a big advantage by taking advantage of the telematics data and using that for compliance-based capabilities. So, again, we talk here the preventative maintenance pieces, but if you look at the compliance component of it, it's really large, and we'll talk about the ELD percentage of it. But from compliance, you look at the vehicle side or the equipment side, engine fault codes, the health of the engine. These are all things that require inspections where you can, again, you use the compliance-based capabilities that are available from vendors to be able to help with preventative maintenance. So again, big component of things looking at utilizing inspection-based criteria coupled with the data you're pulling from the equipment out there. So one of the other areas that I think is important is when you look at the rental and billing market. When you look at the rental market, it's increasing quite heavily when you look at construction companies. They're using more and more rental equipment than buying their own equipment. So if you have a job site, you're only going to use generators or light stands for a given period of time. It makes a lot more sense to rent that equipment than it does to physically buy that equipment. So if you look at the 2019 forecast there, it's fairly significant at $53 billion in rental equipment out there. So, you have the likes of United Rentals and others, which can be quite costly from the standpoint of renting, but it also allows you as a construction company to provide additional value to your customers in the rental equipment side of it by being able to track the actual physical hours equipment is being utilized. So if you look at here, again, this is a market snapshot, U.S. equipment rental market size from 2012 to 2019. You see the increase there. It's very significant when you look at the equipment that's being put on rent. So again, using the telematics, whether it's OEM-based or third party, you're able to track the trends there on how that equipment is actually utilized. So if you are, in fact, using rented equipment and using the telematics capabilities, you're able to track your exact hours that the equipment is being used out there, making sure that you're being billed properly, or if you're the rental company, making sure that you have quoted properly and are billing according to the plan. So you have the capabilities, again, of using the accurate meters that come directly off the equipment itself, or, again, using the AEMP feed from the different vendors. But you're able to then take that data and use that in reporting capabilities to make sure, again, you're on track. So if I've rented a generator that I estimate the hours of being 100 hours per week, I'm able to track that generator usage based on the reports and the data feeds that I'm getting directly from, again, either OEM or third party. So what that looks like from a report perspective would be as simple as, running this for a job site and tells me, here's the equipment that I have on rent, and then how many hours I've utilized that during a given time period. So if you're using a report similar to this, it gives you kind of a visual that, I'm using it for X amount of hours in this given week, which still keeps me under my rental cost. If you're the rental company, obviously the benefit for both sides, you're making sure you're staying true with what you've quoted a customer, and you don't have to go back to ask for additional hours. So really important when you look at this from a rental and billing perspective. We snuck the compliance slide in there, preventative maintenance, but again, when you look at it, there's a number of different areas that compliance plays in the construction world. We talked about it again under the inspection side of it. I'm now able to inspect my equipment out there that might be required for a certain type of job site. If you have job sites that require different safety type aspects, you're again using compliance through the telematics to be able to comply with those safety settings. You also look at things like anti-idling for exhaust reduction, again, depending on what type of job site you're on. You have ELD, which is the U.S. mandate for heavy-duty vehicles, referred to as hours of service. And then you have fuel tax. You're able to gather fuel tax credits on some job sites depending on how much use is off-road usage. So there's a number of different factors that play into the compliance piece and how compliance capabilities are utilized with the telematics data. We talked about ELD, an ELD mandate that is requiring all vehicles over 10,000 pounds to have an ELD-based solution by the end of December 2017. So that is a mandate put out by the DOT or by the government in the United States that require all vehicles, and there are some exceptions, to have ELD-based solutions. And there's a whole plethora of different rule sets that apply to construction itself or to other types of customers out there. So talk a little bit about that as we move forward here. But a lot of people are looking at the ELD side of it and say, we're required to do it by law. So if we have to do it, what other fringe benefits come with the compliance piece of it? If I have to do it, how can I make it more profitable for my business, and how can I help my business strive when I have to use this technology or being forced to use this technology? One of the key components is looking at the inspection criteria. There are different types of applications out there. This is a sample of one of them. Where they're using QR codes around a vehicle. They're using those QR codes to get the driver out of the vehicle, do their circle check, and look for any sort of defects that might be out there. If there is a defect, they can use the application to take pictures so that it basically allows for a quicker turn on that vehicle. So if I have a blown tire, I can take a picture of that tire. When it gets back to the maintenance clerk knows, hey, I need to bring a new tire. It's a this size tire. And I can now go out and fix that asset to eliminate the downtime of that asset to get it back up and running. So this is, again, more vehicle-based, but the same concept can be applied to equipment itself. So if you have generators and you want to inspect your generators every so many hours, you have the capabilities of utilizing the same sort of application to be able to inspect the generators and other assets that might be out there. The other big advantage to compliance, especially for construction, is some of the different rule sets that are available or exemptions that are available to the construction space. They have a rule set here, which is 100 and 150 air mile radius, and that's for an exemption. Basically, what that tells you is if you're within that area, so if you're within 100 to 150 miles of your job site in a radius circle, you don't have to physically produce graph logs. So, there are some exemptions that are available to you that make it a little bit easier to comply with the ELD mandate. What we're seeing in the industry is a lot of folks, even if they are using 100, 150 mile air radius, are still putting in an ELD-based device in their vehicle. So again, ELD stands for electronic logging device, and that's the physical device that's put into the vehicle to track driver behavior or hours of use. The other big one is for those construction companies that tow vehicles. So you might have a Ford F-550. It's not over 10,000 pounds, so it does not hit the ELD mandate, but the functionality may increase as you start towing something. So if I'm towing an excavator, now all of a sudden that 550 becomes a 10,000 pound vehicle, which requires graph logs. So some of the telematics vendors or ELD-based vendors that are out there have created different types of what's referred to as towing rules. So if you have an asset, it's a truck 550, and then you're towing something, you would basically go in, you'd scan the trailer, enter the trailer you're towing, and that will automatically create that gross weight and basically make that vehicle a compliant-based vehicle for ELD logs. So again, as you're starting to look at ELD in the telematics space, you want to make sure that you have some good capabilities there of looking at the other benefits that telematics brings. The other area is looking at the ELD components, as I mentioned, and looking at how I can use that data for other types of capabilities within the organization. So you can look at utilizing the telematics-based data for ELD for things not only complying with the ELD logs, but maybe looking at training capabilities. How do I further train my drivers out there on how to do business? Maybe I use that information for payroll, administration information. So I can take the telematics data that it might be used for ELD for compliance and be able to better utilize that for additional capabilities within my organization. And what does that basically come to? Increased visibility in your driver status, better CSA scores, and obviously better safety. And if you look at safety in the competitive market in construction, if you have high safety scores, obviously that bodes well as you're bidding for jobs. So again, looking at this data and utilizing this data for other areas and aspects outside of the standard telematics capabilities. One of the other characteristics with telematics, again, because you're able to connect into the different types of machines and other things that are out there, is looking at some of the fuel efficiencies that are gained through telematics. So looking at idling, well, you might need to idle a vehicle on a job site or idle a crane on a job site. But what we want to really look at is some of the other characteristics around that idling time. So take a vehicle, for instance. If I'm idling a vehicle on a job site and it's just sitting there idle, well, it's using a lot of fuel. There's a lot of fuel, fraud that could potentially happen there from that standpoint. But if I'm idling that vehicle and I'm using a crane to do certain functions, well, that's idling that we want to basically take out of the equation when we're trying to coach on idling trends or idling capabilities. The same thing happens with a crane or a light stand or other. If I'm idling that particular type of asset, but it's under load, then that's good idling. That's idling that needs to happen in order for that to run. A good example is a JLG lift or some sort of lift that might be out there. If I'm running it and that basket's engaged, well, I need to idle it for that particular asset to work. So again, looking at the idling capabilities that are out there, some of the data you're getting from telematics, and being able to couple that data together to create a much better story is something that the telematics data provides. So with that, I kind of just wanted to give a real good overview of some of the characteristics that the telematics data has. And if you kind of look and expand out, as we mentioned with idling, you start looking at other tax savings and other capabilities that we can offer out there. There are tax incentives right now available for construction companies based on what's referred to as off-road mileage. So for fuel tax benefits, if you're using equipment out there and it's on leased roads, it's considered off-road, and there's a tax benefit to that. There's also tax benefit available to what's referred to as IFTA or interstate regulation. So if I'm working in Wisconsin and Illinois, each one of those have tax benefits for the fuel purchase there. So again, by using telematics, you're able to take that data and be able to pull in additional benefits from the savings that you're able to derive from the compliance piece. So with that, kind of brings us to the end of the talking points here. We just wanted to now open it up for questions. If anyone had any questions, you can obviously submit those through the question and answer sequence. So Wajia, over to you. I see that some of the questions did come in here. One of the questions that came up was, how can the data provided by telematics and ELD be used for identifying training issues, and how does this factor into potential cost savings? I think that's a good question. When you look at telematics itself, this is basically the ELD piece it requires a lot of change management. If you look at your entire organization, you're now forced to be able to provide ELD-based logs. So there needs to be some method of change management that will happen across the organization. So you may look at different ways that they utilize that vehicle now. So incorporating the training aspect and launching the ELD program is important. and the cost savings are huge. I mean, obviously you have to do it from a legal perspective, but you look at the insurance savings by having safe vehicles, your increased FMCSA score, all of those things that equate to cost savings.
Great, thanks, Brendan, and sorry about that. I was on mute earlier, but the next question that we have coming in is, what if I already have ELDs on some of my vehicles? Does that mean I'm already covered by the ELD mandate?
Yes, it would, depending on how, if that vendor is compliant with the latest regulation. So if you already have ELD, what they did was they grandfathered a 2-year extension into ELD logs. So if you're using what's referred to as an AOBR or EOBR solution already today, then you have 2 years to have a fully compliant ELD-based regulation available. So you do get a bit of an extension there to become fully compliant.
Great. And the next one, in an AMP standardized system, where would I be able to view the incoming data from my assets?
Yeah, I guess that really depends on the AEMP data. Depends on what telematics-based company you're going with. You know, a lot of telematics companies out there share data. So, you know, if you're looking at, you know, using, say, a John Deere system and you want to pull in data from a generator, if they have a generator that has AEMP feed, you could use the John Deere portal to see all that data, and vice versa. If you have a telematics a base solution already for your vehicles, but you want to pull in light stand and generator data, again, you'd use that same AEMP feed from the generator group into the telematics company for the vehicles.
Awesome. One person's asking, how can telematics help me better manage my equipment rental costs?
Yeah, I mean, you look at rental costs, you know, you're able to now take the exact use time of those assets, and similar to the report we showed within the presentation, you're able to then get exact usage time for those assets. So if I'm out looking at, you know, how many hours I'm running for a given generator, typically the way that rental companies work is they quote out jobs based on what they assume to be use time, so it just kind of shores up that capability. So if I rent generators, 10 generators to a company at 100 hours, you know, a month, you make sure that, you know, you're running true to that 100 hours and you're not going over.
And another one, where is the data stored and for how long? Who will be able to access backlog data?
Yeah, the data usage or data storage piece of it, you know, really depends on the telematics company. Most companies are using some cloud-based technology to store that data, whether it's Amazon Cloud or something on the order of that. So data stored in the cloud, it can be accessed anywhere. It's really up to the telematics-based company to provide the security protocols on who accesses what data. So if I'm a general foreman at a particular job site, I may only be able to see my job site-based assets out there. But if I'm a fleet manager for the entire company, I might be able to see across all my jobs. So it really depends, again, on the telematics company and how you're pulling that data in. But again, all companies are pretty much cloud-based these days.
Awesome. And what type of general data is available through generic tracking system that isn't specific to manufacturers?
That really depends on the type of equipment that you're connected up to. You know, there are generators out there that have controllers on them that don't come with kind of OEM telematics that allow us to pull information like DTC information, you know, the trouble codes that are fired from those assets. You can pull hours information. You can pull different types of utilization, fuel usage, load percentage. So it really depends, again, on the asset and what we're able to track down from those assets.
Awesome. I think that's all the Q&A session wrapped up. So I'll back to Becky.
Thank you, Wajia. As Wajia mentioned, it looks like that was our last question. So please keep in mind that you can follow up with Brendan. There will be an email provided here at the end of the slides where you can follow up with Brendan to get more information on the presentation, the topics addressed here today. I'd like to again thank Brendan Shaw from BSM Technologies for joining us today, and thank all of you for taking time to join us in this presentation. As a reminder, an archived version of this webinar, including the slides, will be posted within about roughly 24 hours on forconstructionpros.com. Thank you again, and that concludes our program for today.